live in interesting times. Today's stories. EU leaders discuss migration and Brexit at the key Brussels summit. Hundreds of Syria refugees return home from a Lebanon border town. Venezuelan president says U.S. Vice President Pence is, quote, a poisonous snake. President Trump reacts after immigration reform bill fails in the U.S. House. Plus, Tampa Mayhem coach David Ulch explains the basics of rugby. Hello everyone, I am Eliza Gonzalez Manglik Mott bringing you stories from around the globe. And this is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. European leaders arrive at a crunch migration summit in Brussels.
We shouldn't get into a panic state of mind. Our policies in the last year or so have started to produce results. Now they need to be sustained. And it is extremely important that we do this in cooperation and partnership with our friends in countries of origin and transit, in particular in Africa.
Italy's hardline new premier threatened Thursday to block a joint EU statement on migration at a summit that embattled German Chancellor Angela Merkel warned could decide the bloc's fate. Rome has recently refused to let several migrant rescue boats dock, reviving fresh tensions despite the fact that numbers of arrivals have dipped sharply since the height of Europe's migration crisis in 2015. Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte, who heads Italy's month-old populist and anti-migration government, said he would refuse to endorse the conclusions of the meeting in Brussels if fellow leaders failed to do more to help Italy. Conte said, quote, "Italy does not need more words, but concrete facts. It's a possibility I hope not to consider, but if we reach that point on my behalf, we will not have shared conclusions." Italy comes to the EU gathering emboldened by the announcement that Conte will, on July 30, visit U.S. President Donald Trump, who has hailed Rome's tough stance and who himself blocked the conclusions of a recent G7 leaders meeting on trade. The EU summit comes amid warnings that authoritarian and anti-European movements will profit from any failure by the 28 leaders to deal with the flare-up of tensions over migrants that has put Merkel's political future in the balance. Merkel said, "Europe has many challenges, but migration could end up determining Europe's destiny." She said the bloc could decide to, quote, overcome the challenge in a way that people in Africa or elsewhere believe that we are guided by our values, or in a matter where no one will believe in our value system that has made us so strong. Hundreds of Syrian refugees left the Lebanese border town of Arsal on Thursday to return home as part of a coordinated operation between authorities in Beirut and Damascus. As fighting fronts in some parts of Syria have died down, Lebanese authorities have become increasingly insistent on returns, more of which are expected in the coming weeks. According to the United Nations Refugee Agency, Arsal hosts some 36,000 displaced Syrians, many of them from Syrian villages just across the border. The Lebanese National News Agency said around 370 left Arsal on Thursday afternoon for Syrian territory under an agreement reached between Lebanon's General Security and Syrian authorities. Women and young children could be seen climbing into cars, tractors, and covered lorries in the dusty suburb of Wadi Hamid, just outside Arsal. The vehicles were piled high with personal belongings, mattresses, plastic containers, and even furniture. Security forces checked their identity papers to make sure they were on a prepared list of people authorized to leave. They gathered at the arid Lebanese-Syrian border before moving together in a convoy across the frontier. Syrian state media confirmed they had begun arriving into Syrian territory. General Security Chief Abbas Ibrahim said Thursday's operation was just the first wave of returns. NNA said Lebanese authorities had presented to Damascus a list of 3,000 people who wanted to return, of whom just 450 were approved. The UNHCR said the refugee agency had a team on the ground but was not involved in the operations. Lisa Abu Khaled said their position hasn't changed and that they haven't organized returns and did not organize this one. She said UN teams in Syria have requested access from Damascus to reach the towns and villages to which refugees would be returning, most of them in the Kalamoun region, but had yet to receive permission. Lebanon hosts nearly 1 million registered Syrian refugees, but authorities estimate the real number is higher. Officials have been increasingly calling for refugee returns, with or without a political solution to Syria's 7-year-old conflict. Earlier this year, around 500 refugees left southern Lebanon for Syria in a return organized by both Lebanese and Syrian authorities. Several thousand have independently gone back to their homeland from towns around the border in recent years. Lebanese officials have stressed that they are not forcing returns and that refugees are doing so voluntarily. Syrians began seeking refuge in Arsal early in their country's war, setting up tents along the border and renting homes in the town itself. In 2014, jihadists overran Arsal and clashed with Lebanese security forces, kidnapping 30 of them and subsequently killing 4. Up next, Venezuelan president says U.S. Vice President Pence is a, quote, poisonous snake. President Trump reacts after immigration reform bill fails in the U.S. House. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will return in a moment. Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News, Washington, D.C. The president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, says the vice president of the United States, Mike Pence, is a, quote, poisonous snake who will be defeated wherever he travels, as the top diplomat visits several countries across Latin America to discuss the Venezuelan crisis.
Cada vez que la culebra venenosa de Mike Pence abre la boca, yo me siento más fuerte, más claro de cuál es el camino. El camino es nuestro, es venezolano. No es el que nos señala Mike Pence, ni 20 culebras venenosas. Fracasado y derrotado Mike Pence. Sí, te hemos derrotado y te vamos a derrotar, Mike Pence. Donde estés, a donde viajes, Mike Pence. La revolución...
U.S. Vice President Mike Pence arrived in Ecuador Wednesday on a visit that will include a meeting with President Lenin Moreno and talks on the Venezuelan crisis. Valencia said other issues that would be addressed by Pence and Moreno will revolve around security and defense, and that Ecuador was keen to boost exports to the United States. On his Brazil visit, Pence and Brazilian President Michel Temer discussed the fate of Brazilian children stranded at America's southern border and Venezuela's deepening crisis. About 50 Brazilian children are staying at shelters in the United States after being separated from their parents at the U.S.-Mexican border. More than 2,000 children, mostly Central Americans, were separated from their parents as a result of U.S. President Donald Trump's zero-tolerance policy on illegal immigration. On Venezuela, the U.S. Vice President urged Brazil to support stronger action to isolate the government of leftist President Nicolas Maduro. More than 32,000 Venezuelans have sought asylum in Brazil and thousands of others temporary residency in the last 3 years. The trend is on the rise as the social, economic, and political crisis in the neighboring country has grown increasingly dire. Ecuador's Moreno has distanced himself from the Maduro government in contrast to his predecessor Rafael Correa, a close ally of Caracas. Pence and Moreno are expected to make a joint declaration ahead of the vice president's trip to Guatemala, where he will meet with officials from that country, Honduras, and El Salvador. U.S. President Donald Trump says Democrats are refusing to pass a Republican compromise bill on immigration because they think it's a good election point after lawmakers rejected the measure by an overwhelming 121 to 301 in the House of Representatives.
We believe families have to be together, but what we really do is we believe in very strong borders, no crime, and the Democrats believe in open borders and plenty of crime, because that's what you get with the open borders. I said, look, pass something or come back with something that would be a derivation, but get something you want. The problem we have is we need Democratic votes in the Senate, and that's why I don't get overly excited with the House bill right now, because it's not going to pass in the Senate. You're not going to get the Democrats to vote for anything. If we gave them 100% of what they wanted and then doubled it, they still wouldn't pass it because they think it's a good election point.
A Republican compromise bill reforming U.S. immigration law failed spectacularly in Congress on Wednesday, dealing a blow to President Donald Trump's efforts to resolve a simmering border crisis that has seen thousands of migrant families separated. Lawmakers rejected the Border Security and Immigration Reform Act by an overwhelming 121 to 301, with all Democrats opposing the bill, along with dozens of Republican conservatives who argued it did not do enough to rein in illegal immigration. Republican Congressman Mike Kaufman said, quote, "While today's vote is a setback, I will not take a step back. Although this measure did not pass, our fight for immigration reform will continue." The failure now raises the possibility of lawmakers taking up a narrower measure that ends family separations but does not address issues such as border wall funding, protections for young immigrants who were brought to the country illegally as children, and curtailment of legal immigration. Republican Congressman Bob Goodlatte said the American people want a holistic approach to reforming immigration laws that focuses on enforcement first before legalization. Before the vote, Democrat Adriano Espaillat said on the floor of the House, quote, "We need to finally ask ourselves, will we continue to be a country of aspirations, or will we continue to be a country of deportation?" Tampa Mayhem coach David Ulch explains the basics of rugby. That's next. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will return shortly. This is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. I am Eliza Gonzalez Manglikmont. Ever heard of the sport rugby? To some, it is as interesting and engaging as basketball, football, and volleyball. But to others, it is a sport never heard of or something very unfamiliar. EBC's Angelo Corpus steals a moment with Tampa Mayhem coach David Ulch to tackle some tips on how to play this contact sport. Take a look.
Hey everyone, it's Angelo. The sport of rugby has been around since the 19th century and made its mark in countries like the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. However, rugby isn't as prominent for us here in the US because of the dominating popularity of baseball, basketball, and football. So today, we're gonna have a crash course from pro rugby player David Ulch from Tampa Mayhem. Let's learn rugby.
One of the first steps in learning rugby is basically passing. We Americans, we typically like to tuck the ball because of American football. One of the biggest rules when you're carrying the ball in rugby is trying to do a two-hand carry. That's the biggest thing that we're trying to promote, because right here, you're telling the defense there's a possibility of passing the ball, either left or right. When you tuck it, you're telling them that you're just running straight at them. So, trying to promote two-hand carry. When you do this, the first step when we do this is you're always trying to pass the ball back. In rugby, that's a basic rule, passing the ball backwards, right? And so with you're my target here on the right side, so my goal is to take a step, get the ball out to the side of my hip, and this is gonna feel really weird because we're used to throwing overhand, right? Getting it off to the side of the hip, elbow up, and getting it out to the target. Now you're gonna be using your hip as you come across to throw that. Does that make sense? Yeah. So as you step outside with the outside leg, come across with your hips, yep, boom, and you're there, just like that. Very, very, very simple. So again, stepping forward, out to the side, hip out, pop, just like that. And one of the reasons why we do it like that is because we're also protecting our ribs too, in case somebody goes to try to tackle you, you're not gonna have some busted ribs, right? Yeah. So if you want to, go ahead and try it again. Yep, there you go. And then back up, one more time. Yep, just like that. Okay. All right? This next drill we're doing is just a basic line drill, getting the ball out wide to offensive guys as we're doing on the offensive side of the ball. So here we go, boys. Yep. There you go. Good. Nice job, buddy. Ready? Yep.
I'm wide, Angela, wide.
There you go. Good. Yeah. Quick. There you go. There you go. All right, the next drill we're doing is a 3-2-1 drill, and this is it does focus a little bit on the offensive side, but it really benefits more of the defensive side. And we do this drill almost pretty much every practice. It's beneficial for the defensive side of the ball. Do you have any questions up to this point?
Why do we roll the ball back?
Why do you roll the ball back? In rugby league, unlike union, when you get tackled and you're coming off the ground, when you put the ball down, you have to place it down and then roll it back with your foot. Now this right here basically signals the next tackle, or in American football, the next play. Okay. You know how in American football they sit here and the center comes over top and hikes it? Yeah. This is basically the same version of that. Yeah. And so as soon as the tackle guy puts the ball down and puts it, boom, that's basically hiking the ball back for the next play, for the offensive side to push up. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Yep. Bumpers up. There you go. Good, good, good. Three. Yeah, tackle, release. Put it up, roll it down. Good. Nice. Now when you roll it, you don't have to like really push it. Like you went like this and just like hauled it back. When you do it, just come over top and literally just tap it, just like that. Okay. Because as soon as you tap it, if you tap it, that means it's the next play.
I mean, why? Does that person will be close to you?
Yeah, because when you do that, I'm basically the quarterback. I'm the hooker, our hooker. So when you go to set it down, like I'm right here waiting for it. So I'm here, and then I'm going to pass it back out again. Oh, okay. Does that make sense? Yeah. There's always going to be someone there. Okay. There's always going to be someone there. Yep. Take it in. There you go. Nice boys. Yep. Good. All right, tackling in rugby league is a bit different than what it is in football, and especially different from rugby union too. One of the goals in rugby league is to tackle a bit higher, mostly in this zone where you have the ball. So if you're running with the ball two hands, or you tuck it in like you do right here, our goal is to try to get within this zone to hold the ball. Because if we go any lower, there's a possibility where you could offload, what we call offload, where you pass the ball to a buddy that's running with you. Yeah. So our goal is to try to actually get in here when we go to tackle, right up in the shoulder area. And we're going to explain basically some do's and don'ts, what's illegal, what's legal, so you guys will know the difference between some of the different tackling techniques. So the first one is just a basically tackle. Justin's going to show us how it basically goes in that. So if you go, just go in and tuck it with your bumpers up, and he'll show exactly how it goes. So go ahead. Boom. And where he's at right here, this is legal. He's wrapped. Both arms are wrapped around him, and that's one of the required rules. You have to wrap when you go to tackle. Unlike in football, where you can do forearm shivers and shoulder charges, that's illegal in rugby league. So you need to make sure you wrap. His head's to the side, nice and tight, and he's not above the neck or higher. If you tackle from neck or higher, that's illegal, right? A lot of times you can actually get sent out of the game depending on how brutal it is, right? So we'll set it back up again. And if you want to try it on Justin. All right. All right, so same thing. What you want to do, like we just said, it's a little bit shorter for you. So when you come in, you want to kind of get down underneath and up like that. All right. So your goal is actually this area right in here. All right. So try to get that shoulder underneath there and up. So go ahead. There you go. Good. Basically, make sure that arm gets wrapped around too.
All the way?
Yeah. You want to be all. I know. As far as you can. I know you're not gonna be able to get all the way around, but at least up and around in order to get the ball. You want to contain the ball, because if you don't contain the ball, he can easily just offload it. So go ahead and go into it again. You'll see what he does if you don't wrap the ball up. Yeah. You see? So again, make sure you wrap the ball up, or he's gonna offload. So go ahead. There you go. Good. And then another tackle we have, if the first guy, the 3-2-1 drill that we just did, the first guy always goes in up top to get the ball. Second guy goes around the waist to get a little bit lower. So again, you're dropping level. Do it this side. Drop the level. You get your head to the side like this, right? And getting to the hand to the side, just like it's kind of like if you ever wrestled, it's kind of like that too. You know, like a double leg takedown. Okay. And so yeah, I'll take the top, and then you just go for the hip, right? Yep. Down. Just like that.
Oh, okay.
Perfect. Good.
Whew, that was intense. Well, we hope we shed some light for you on this sport. Now go catch a rugby game near you. Signing out from Tampa Bay, I'm Angelo Corpuz, and I'm always 1 with 25.
Thank you, Angelo, and special thanks to Coach David of the Tampa Mayhem. That is today's Eagle News Washington, D.C. Join us tomorrow for the weekend edition. Visit our websites at Eaglenews.PH and EagleNewsLive.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Twitter.com/EagleNewsPH. Thank you for watching. I am Eliza Gonzalez Manglik Mott, always 1 with 25.